when the body becomes a symbol. Using nudity to represent grief, freedom, loneliness, rebellion, or identity. Nudity in art is often misunderstood as exposure. But in many of the most important works across history, it is not exposure at all. It is transformation. Because when the body is stripped of clothing, it does not automatically become more visible in a literal sense. Instead, it becomes more open to interpretation. It stops being a social object, defined by status, fashion, or context, and starts becoming something else entirely, a symbol. And symbols are never simple. In ancient art, the nude body often represented ideals rather than individuals. Strength, purity, fertility, divinity. The body was perfected, not personal. It was less about who this is, and more about what this represents. But as art evolves, something shifts. The body begins to carry emotional weight. Not just form, but feeling. In modern art, nudity becomes less about perfection and more about truth, though even truth is complicated. Because what artists call truth is often emotional rather than factual. It is the truth of experience, grief, isolation, desire, fear, resistance. Take grief, for example. A nude body in a collapsed posture can communicate loss more directly than any written language. Without clothing, there is no distraction, only vulnerability. The absence of protection becomes part of the meaning itself. Grief in this form is not dramatic in a theatrical sense. It is quiet, internal, heavy. Then there is loneliness. In photography and painting, the solitary nude figure often becomes a landscape of distance. The body is present, but it feels removed, like it exists in a space that does not fully acknowledge it. The absence of context becomes emotional space. Loneliness is not shown through tears, but through placement. A figure turned away, folded inward, partially hidden in shadow. Freedom, however, works differently. In some works, nudity is not vulnerability, it is release. A body without restriction can represent escape from social identity, gender expectations, or cultural labeling. It becomes less about being seen and more about refusing to be defined. Freedom in this sense is not loud. It is not performance. It is simply the absence of constraint. And then there is rebellion. Throughout modern art history, the nude body has often been used as resistance against censorship, moral systems, and rigid cultural rules. In these cases, the body becomes political not because it is sexual, but because it refuses control. It insists on being present without apology. It disrupts comfort. It challenges the viewer's assumptions about what should or should not be seen. Even in early modern expressionism, artists like Egon Schiele pushed the body into uncomfortable emotional territory, twisted forms, exposed tension, figures that feel psychologically unfiltered rather than idealized. The nudity here is not about beauty. It is about psychological intensity. The body becomes a record of inner unrest. And in contemporary photography, artists such as Francesca Woodman take this even further. The body becomes uncertain, blurred, fading, merging with architecture or disappearing into space. Here, nudity is not declaration. It is dissolution. Identity itself feels unstable, as if the body is questioning its own boundaries. But perhaps the most powerful use of the nude body is identity itself. Not identity as label, but identity as question. Who am I when all external markers are removed? When clothing, status, style, and performance fall away, what remains? The answer is not fixed. And that is exactly the point. Because the body, when used as symbol, does not offer conclusions. It offers possibilities. It allows artists to speak about what cannot be easily spoken, grief that has no language, freedom that has no shape, loneliness that cannot be witnessed directly, rebellion that cannot be contained, identity that is always in flux. Nudity, in this sense, is not about revealing everything. It is about reducing everything until only meaning remains. And meaning, once it is no longer covered by social interpretation, becomes fragile, open, and deeply human. So when the body becomes a symbol, it stops belonging only to the individual. It becomes a shared surface, where viewers project, question, and feel. Not because it shows too much, but because it refuses to explain itself completely. And in that silence, art begins to speak.